So what would happen if we didn't process that emotion?
Really hear what you're saying about not understanding, that you could use tapping for your emotions, even though it's called emotional freedom techniques. When I got certified, I didn't understand emotions specifically to how I understand them now. And I took an emotions course. It's called Emotional Intelligence, and it's by Joanne Kim. That was really helpful, especially when I think I was going through certification at that time. She was actually a client of mine. So I did freelance makeup and hair for over 15, 16 years. And so she was a client of mine. And as she was telling me about her program, and I was like, this sounds amazing, especially for what I'm getting into. And so I took it, and she explained the emotional vortex. And that was such a huge light bulb moment for me because she explained it as when we reject an emotion. So when we are feeling an emotion and in that moment we're like, I can't feel this right now, you bring others along with it. You keep like holding that down. You just keep piling it on. Like, okay, I'm feeling the shame of it. I'm feeling the judgment of it. I'm feeling the fear of it. Like, and so you create this huge vortex that has all these piles emotions like swirling within it. So that's why it can feel really overwhelming, even thinking about going there, like even thinking about starting to deconstruct like what it is I'm feeling because it feels so big. I feel like I've heard over the last week kind of this same word come up with clients of like, I'm going to like implode myself. Everything just feels so big if I even think about it. So tapping is really great because it really brings focus to just one. Like, okay, let's just focus on one for right now. And when we start to move through that single emotion, there's probably going to be another one that pops up. Like, oh, I was feeling this anger. And now that I've moved through some of the anger, I'm starting to feel shame. And now that I moved through this shame, I'm starting to feel judgment. And it's this way to be able to just slowly unpack that vortex and move back into alignment of well being because we've processed out those emotions.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've looked at emotions in the way of seeing people who ultimately don't process their emotions. Like, I really truly believe that it affects the health, especially. Like, I see people and I'm like, let's take a moment. Let's figure out something to help you go through that and process that. And I can see that in a sense of I just never really allowed my emotions to come through. I know in the time that I was brought up, it just wasn't a big thing for us to process the emotions. Like, "Oh, you're fine. You're okay." Not even like, "How are you feeling? Are you scared because you fell? Are you hurt?" Those different ways of just giving space for what happened. It's like, just brush off, you're fine. And so I don't know if you grew up in a family or a time period of that. I know you're a little bit younger than I am. So I just wondered. So I see that and I have kids. And so my first reaction is like, you're fine. And then I'm like, are you fine? What is happening? Like you can process this. I will give you space to process this. And so I just wondered what your thoughts were with that and if you
Yeah.
have any background with that at all.
Yeah, I definitely same. And I don't feel that I was able to process emotions. I really remember being younger. Literally, I can like feel myself just like pushing them down and just like so tense and I can feel them coming up, but I'm like, no, like bottling it and fighting it. And also I've been doing a lot of shadow work recently too, and just kind of going back into these times in my life where I just talked so badly to myself. And I think that really was because of these emotions I was feeling that I didn't know how to express and to verbalize. That's that third house Gemini wounded healer. Like I didn't know how to process them. I just can see myself so tense. And so then the conversation got really heavy in my head. When I was out of high school, I moved to Los Angeles to go to makeup and hair school. I was like 17. It was like within that year, there were a few things that happened, but I basically started to develop psoriasis. I didn't know what it was, and there was a huge process of it, a really painful time in my life because I went through these like physical manifestations. And there's a great book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. So good.
Yes.
And just it's like the psoriasis is really like the deadening of our emotions, deadening of life, and not being able to process that through. And so it took me a few years to really get that under control, my psoriasis, but I broke out all over my body. It was so physically painful. At that time, I really had to force myself to learn how to cry, like, really just let myself cry and scream. I remember, like, driving to doctor's appointments and just, like, screaming in my car and really inviting myself, giving myself this permission to express. Even then, I was still using drugs and alcohol a lot to help myself with these emotions, and I'm now sober. I'm about 6 years sober, and it's just being able to express my emotions more and more. I mean, my psoriasis has been dormant for years, like very long time, but I keep just learning the power of emotion. And I'm even going through it right now of just some like my body showing me areas and places that have been repressed when it comes to expression, and just letting it manifest in physical form. And just literally recently, I'm going through it right now, and it's been like 7 days since I've been doing this shadow work. It's actually the message I've gotten from it as I do my own internal insight is like, I'm punishing myself. Like, ooh, go start tapping, make me emotional. But this expression of just like, you're punishing yourself. And so going back and just trying to work on these times of when did I repress myself? Now finding healthy ways to express. So,
That's beautiful and powerful. Your younger self is like, "Look at her, she's doing it."
yeah.
Like, you are giving her everything she needed, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just a short amount of time working on my wounded Chiron. And I actually, when I work with one-to-one clients, I'm always looking at their wounded Chiron and like, okay, let's like really see where this core is, this deep wound, but being consciously taking action on it now, the little work that I've done so far, it's like leaps and bounds in terms of greater self-expression and ease being able to express myself. Yeah, my
Well,
inner child's definitely like, hell yeah.
now I wanna know how I can work on my wound in Chiron. What do I need to do? Because I feel like there's probably something there. Please tell me.
Definitely, for me, Gemini is that expression and being able to process emotions. And for Taurus, so much of it comes down to self worth, really being able to connect to your own self worth and knowing that material things does not determine your self worth, but it actually all comes from within, and your spiritual practices.
Welcome to Float Activity, the channel that guides you on a transformative journey towards spiritual wisdom, self-development, and healing practices, all aimed at elevating your intuition and aligning you with your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Kara Dempsey, and I'm thrilled to have you joining me as we learn together. Please subscribe and share this with a friend to help grow my channel. I appreciate you, and we'll chat soon.